Good evening, Indira, Naidoo with Late Edition News. The Stolen Children report will be tabled in federal parliament next week. Today, the Howard government reaffirmed its intention to ignore the report's recommendations and refuse compensation to Aboriginal children taken from their families. But the move could see the legal system inundated with compensation claims.
Stolen Children inquiry, will you do anything?
No response today from the Prime Minister. It was left to others to deny the government has delayed the release of the Stolen Generation report. While it's yet to be tabled, it recommends a national fund with monetary compensation for Aboriginal children taken from their families. There be a minimum lump sum and free legal advice, but the government has already said no.
It would be wrong to judge what has happened in the past by the standards of today.
No money from the opposition either, just an urge to be generous-hearted.
That might not necessarily involve much, if anything at all, by way of financial compensation, but it's certainly going to demand a generosity of spirit.
While Australia is a signatory to the Genocide Convention, there's nothing legally to force the government to pay compensation. It's more a moral issue.
The federal government's claim is that it's too difficult to pay compensation. Well, I have news for them. The Germans have shown in 2 world wars that they are very, very good at organising reparations payments.
The report recommends apologies from all Australian parliaments, police forces and churches, and it would be symbolised with a National Sorry Day. Unlike the government, the churches haven't ruled out compensation.
If we can compensate gun owners in Australia because we had the wrong gun policies for too many years, we certainly should compensate Aboriginal people because we had the wrong Aboriginal policies for many years.
The High Court is already dealing with compensation claims, and today in Melbourne, Robert Thorpe applied for the issue of Aboriginal genocide to be taken to the International Court of Justice. Indeed, the Stolen Children report is already attracting overseas attention the government could well do without.
The chairman of CanWest, Izzy Asper, says he'll sell his interest in the 10 television network if he's forced to reduce his economic stake below 57%. Last month, the government ordered the Canadian company to sell down its holding to 57%. Today, the Australian Broadcasting Authority said that might not be enough, suggesting CanWest may have to cut its stake further. If that were to happen, the Canadian media mogul warned he'd pull out of 10 altogether.
That was how we were invited here. That's what we've earned. That's the reward we want. And of course, we intend to resist any effort to... but if they want us to go away, we'll go away.
Mr Asper was speaking at the opening of the 10 Network's new studios in Sydney. One person has died in rioting which has swept the Indonesian capital Jakarta in the countdown to national elections. Newspaper reports say a 20-year-old suffered a gunshot wound while scores more were injured in violent clashes between the military and youths. Extra troops have been brought in to quell the violence that's erupted on Jakarta's streets. Thousands defied the government ban on street rallies in the lead-up to the May 29th poll.
This trouble is from the people cannot get anywhere because the army is always stop it in here, stop the campaign.
Tear gas and warning shots were fired to disperse the crowds. 20 arrests were made in the crackdown. The Australian Embassy in Jakarta has issued a warning for Australians to exercise caution in the city. To finance news now, and the US Reserve's interest rate decision gave the financial markets a boost today. The Australian share market hit a record high, with bank stocks leading the way. Overseas, the FT100 is up 32 points in early trading. The Dow gained ground, but the Nikkei lost nearly 2.5% as the yen surged against the US dollar. The Aussie dollar is steady against the greenback. The image of Mars as a red fiery planet is being challenged. These pictures from the Hubble telescope show an image of Mars far different from the one consisting of warm air and red dust.
There really are 2 distinct climates of Mars. There's a climate of Mars when Mars is nearest to the Sun, and there's a climate of Mars when Mars is furthest from the Sun.
One that's much colder and cloudier, and say experts more like our climate on Earth. The drastic change occurs over a period of only a few weeks. The revelations are helping scientists in charge of 2 space probes heading for Mars. Now, tomorrow's national weather in brief. A shower or 2 in Sydney and Canberra, a little rain for Melbourne, mainly fine in Adelaide and fine in the other capital cities. And that's all from the National Newsroom. Next, Lateline with Jennifer Byrne. I'm Indira Naidoo. Good night.